Jinse. It is said that there was a scholar named Wang in Yishui County. His parents died when he was young, and his family was very poor. But Wang Sheng is a beautiful young man who is elegant, clean, free and easy. There was a local rich man named Lan who liked Wang Sheng very much. He married his daughter to him and promised to build a house and buy land for him. Not long after Wang Sheng got married, Lan Fuan passed away. His wife's brothers all despised Wang Sheng and never interacted with him, especially his wife. Lan is even more arrogant and fierce, and often treats her husband as a slave. Wang Sheng endured all the delicacies he ate while letting his husband eat simple meals. He even broke off the straw stalks to use as chopsticks when eating. When Wang Sheng was 19 years old, he went to the county to take the scholar examination. As a result, he failed in the exam and was very depressed. When I got home, my wife was not there, and mutton soup was boiling in the pot. Wang Sheng scooped up a bowl and ate it. After a while, Mrs. Len walked in and took the pot away without saying a word. Wang Sheng was so ashamed that he threw his chopsticks to the ground and said, "In this situation, it's better to die." Lan asked Wang Sheng resentfully when he was going to die, but still asked him to hang himself with a rope. Wang Sheng was furious, threw his job at Lan, broke his head, and ran away from home. On the way, I thought about it carefully and realized that all my thoughts were lost. Life was really worse than death, so I carried a belt and entered a deep valley. When I came to the bush, I was about to choose a branch to tie my belt with, when I suddenly saw a skirt slightly exposed between the cliffs. In an instant, a little maid appeared, saw Wang Sheng, and quickly shrank back. It disappeared like a shadow, but there was no crack on the cliff. Wang Sheng knew in his heart that it was a monster, but he was about to seek death, so he was not afraid. He put down the belt, sat down on the ground, and watched for movement. After a while, the maid showed half of her face again, glanced outside, and immediately retracted. Wang Sheng thought that if he could follow these ghosts, he could enjoy the pleasure of death. So he grabbed a stone, knocked it on the cliff and said, "If you can go in underground, please show me the way. I am not looking for pleasure, I'm looking for death." Yes, for a long time, there was no movement. Wang Sheng knocked and said it again. I heard someone inside the cliff say, "If you want to die, go back first and come back at night." Although the voice was as thin as a bee's chirp, it was clear and piercing. Wang Sheng replied, "Okay." I walked back and waited for it to get dark. Not long after, the sun set and the stars twinkled in the sky. A tall mansion suddenly appeared between the cliffs, with two doors quietly open. Wang Sheng climbed the steps step by step and walked in. After only a few steps, I saw a river crossing in front of me, with turbulent waves and steaming steam, like a hot spring. When I tried it with my hands, the water was as hot as boiling water. I don't know how deep the river was. Wang Sheng suspected that this was the place where the ghost had pointed him to die, so he plunged in. The hot water soaked through several layers of clothes, and the skin burned as if it was rotten. Fortunately, it floated on the water and did not sink. After swimming in the water for a long time, I gradually became able to tolerate the heat of the water. I struggled hard and climbed up to the south bank of the river. Fortunately, my whole body was not burned. After walking forward for a while, I saw light coming from a large house in the distance, so I walked towards the house. Suddenly a big dog jumped out, pounced on Wang Sheng, took his clothes in its mouth, and tore his socks. Wang Sheng hurriedly picked up a stone and threw it, and the dog retreated slightly. Then another group of dogs blocked the road and started barking wildly. They were all as big as calves. At the critical moment, a maid came out and chased the dogs away. She looked at Wang Sheng and said, "Are you here to seek death? My wife is sorry that you are being persecuted and in a difficult situation. Let me send you to your comfort nest. From now on, there will be no more suffering." Then he held up the lamp, led Wang Sheng to open the back door, and walked forward under the dark night. After a while, I came to a house with bright candles shining on the windows. The maid said, "You go in by yourself. I'm going back." Wang Sheng walked in and looked around. It turned out to be his own home. He hurriedly turned back and ran out, and met an old woman who was under the command of Lan. When she saw Wang Sheng, she said, "I've been looking for you all day. Where are you going?" She pulled Wang Sheng into the house. I saw Mrs. Lan wrapping the wound on her forehead with a handkerchief. She came out of bed with a smile to greet her and said, "We have been husband and wife for more than a year, and we don't even know how to make a joke with you. I have already confessed my sin. You just received a little blame from me, but I really hurt you, so you can take a breath." He took out 2 ingots of gold from the bedside, stuffed them into Wang Sheng's arms, and said, "From now on, the whole family will be fed and clothed. You have the final say, okay?" Without saying a word, Wang Sheng threw the gold to the ground, grabbed the door and ran out, still wanting to knock on the door of the mansion in the deep valley. When they came to the field, the maid was walking slowly, and she could still see her while holding the lamp from a distance. Wang Sheng hurriedly shouted and chased her, but the lamp stopped. When she caught up with her, the maid said, "You're here again. You've ruined my wife's hard work." Wang Sheng said, "I want to die. I didn't discuss with you before asking for life. My wife is from a wealthy family and needs people underground. I am willing to do hard labor. I really can't feel the joy of living." The maid advised, "It's better to die than to die, Lai Huo. Why are your ideas so ridiculous? I don't have any other jobs at home except washing the river, sweeping, feeding dogs, and moving corpses. If you can't reach the prescribed number, you have to cut off ears, cut off noses, and break calves. Chop off your toes. Can you do it?" Wang Sheng replied hurriedly, "Yes." Then he entered the back door. Wang Sheng asked, "What are the errands mentioned just now? We still need to move corpses." "Where are there so many dead corpses?" The maid said, "My wife, out of compassion, opened a give orphan garden to adopt underground poles. There are homeless ghosts wandering in the depths. There are hundreds of ghosts, and they die every day, so they need to be carried away and buried. Please go and have a look." After a while, I approached a door with the words "Give Guyuan" written on it. When I went in, I saw that the houses were numerous, messy, very filthy, and the smell was overwhelming. When the ghosts in the garden saw the lights, they gathered one after another. They were all headless or missing arms and legs, which was unsightly. Wang Sheng turned around and wanted to walk away. I saw a ghost corpse lying under the wall. If I looked closer, I could see that it was a mess of blood and flesh. The maid said, "I haven't moved it for a long time, and it was chewed like this by the dog. Ask Wang Sheng to carry the ghost corpse away." Wang Sheng looked troubled. When the maid saw this, she said, "If you can't do it, please go back to your comfortable place to enjoy the blessings." Wang Sheng had no choice but to carry the ghost corpse on his back and place it in a remote place. Wang Sheng asked the maid to plead with his wife to do something else to avoid being defiled by the corpse, and the maid agreed. Approaching a room, the maid said, "Sit here and wait. I will go in and talk to you. The work of feeding dogs is relatively light. I have found this job for you. You must repay me in the future." After leaving for a while, she ran out again and called to Wang Sheng, "Come on, come on. The lady is out." Wang Sheng hurriedly followed her in and saw lanterns hanging everywhere in the lobby, and a girl in her 20s sitting by the window. "Fairy." Wang Sheng prostrated himself at the foot of the steps. The girl ordered the maid to help him up and said, "This is a scholar. He cannot keep a dog. Let him live in the west room and be in charge of books." Wang Sheng was overjoyed and hurriedly knelt down to express his gratitude. The girl then said, "You seem to be an honest person, but you can do your job well. If you make a mistake, it will be a big sin." Wang Sheng agreed repeatedly. The maid led him to the west room. The rooms were very clean. Wang Sheng was very happy. He thanked the maid and asked about his wife's family background. The maid replied, "My wife's nickname is Jinse, and she is the daughter of Shuho of Donghai. My name is Chunyan. If anything happens sooner or later, just let me know." After saying that, he laughed. After a while, he picked up clothes and bedding and put them on the bed. Wang was so excited that he finally had a place to stay. At dawn, he got up and started working, copying the ghost list. All the servants under his command came to see Wang Sheng and brought him a lot of wine and meat. Wang Sheng wanted to avoid suspicion. "Return all meat and wine. 2 meals a day are provided." Lady Jinse realized that Wang Sheng was honest and prudent, so she specially gave him a Confucian scholar scarf and beautiful new clothes. Whenever there is a reward, Chunyan is ordered to deliver it. Chunyan was born very handsome, and after getting acquainted with Wang Sheng, she often looked at her with affectionate eyes. Wang Sheng pretended to be confused and carefully avoided to avoid incurring guilt. More than 2 years later, Lady Jinse rewarded Wang Sheng with more than double his daily salary. But Wang Sheng was as modest and self-respecting as ever. One night, Wang Sheng had just fallen asleep and heard people making noises in the inner courtyard. He hurriedly got up and picked up the knife and went out. He saw a fire in the inner courtyard, which reflected the sky red. I ran to the dark part of the courtyard and saw a group of robbers robbing the people. The servants were so frightened that they fled in all directions. A servant discovered Wang Sheng and urged him to run away with him. Wang Sheng refused, so he painted his face black, tightened his waist, and shouted among the robbers, "Don't scare Mrs. Zhu. Just plunder the property. Don't leave anything behind." At this time, the robbers were searching everywhere, but couldn't find the brocade. Wang Sheng learned that Jinse had not been caught yet, so he secretly sneaked behind the mansion and searched for him alone. He met an old woman who was hiding, and after asking, she found out that Jinse and Chunyan had escaped over the wall. So they jumped over the wall and found Jinse and Chunyan hiding in a dark corner. Wang Sheng said, "How can we hide people in this place?" Jinse replied, "I really can't walk." Wang Sheng dropped the knife, picked her up and ran. After running for 2 or 3 miles, I was so tired that I was sweating profusely before I escaped into a deep valley, put Jinse down and let her sit on the ground to rest. Suddenly, a fierce tiger rushed over with a strong wind. Wang Sheng was frightened and hurriedly tried to stop it, but the tiger had already caught the brocade in its mouth. Wang Sheng grabbed the tiger's ears tightly and tried his best to stuff his arm into the tiger's mouth to replace Jinse. The tiger got angry, threw down the brocade seal, and bit off Wang Sheng's arm with a snap. The severed arm fell to the ground, and the tiger left. Jinse cried loudly and said, "I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for you." Wang Sheng didn't feel the pain in his hurry, so he asked the maid to tear off a piece of cloth from his clothes and wrap it around the wound. Jinse hurriedly stopped him, leaned down to find the broken arm, placed it on the broken arm, connected it, and bandaged it up. The east gradually turned white, and the sky was about to break, so the 3 of them slowly rushed back. When I got home, I saw it was in ruins. After dawn, the servants and women gradually gathered together. Jinse went to the west room in person to visit Wang Sheng's injured arm. He unwrapped the bandage and saw that the broken arm had been connected. He took out medicine and applied it to the wound before leaving. From then on, Jinse valued Wang Sheng more and more. Let everything he enjoys be the same as yours. After Wang Sheng recovered from his arm injury, Jinse held a banquet indoors to comfort him. Wang Sheng came and asked him to sit down. Wang Sheng repeatedly gave in and sat down in a corner. Jinse raised a glass to drink, as if he were a distinguished guest. After a while, Jinse said, "My body has been carried by you. I want to imitate the story of Princess Chu and Zhang Jin in the past. But there is no matchmaker, and I am ashamed to recommend myself." Wang Sheng said in panic, "My lady has been so kind to me that I can't repay it even if I risk my life. What the lady just said to me is right and wrong. I'm afraid of being struck by thunder, so I really don't dare to obey. If the lady has mercy on me, without a wife, giving him a maid is too much." Jinse was speechless. One day, Jinse's eldest sister Liaozhai suddenly came. She is a beautiful woman in her 40s. In the evening, Liaozhai called Wang Sheng in, asked him to sit down, and said, "I have come all the way to marry my sister, and I will marry her to you tonight." Wang Sheng stood up in a hurry and refused. Liaozhai immediately ordered him to bring wine and ordered the 2 of them to drink from each other. Wang Sheng reluctantly declined, and Liaozhai took his wine glass and exchanged it for the 2 of them. Wang Shengkai fell to the ground to apologize, took Jinse's wine and drank it. After Liaozhai went out, Jinse said to Wang Sheng, "I'll tell you the truth. I was originally an immortal concubine, and I was banished because of my guilt. I voluntarily came underground to adopt the wrong ghost in order to atone for my sins. I was robbed by the devil when I caught up with him. I am destined to have a possessed marriage with you. so I invited my eldest sister from afar, firstly, to officiate at our wedding, and secondly, to ask her to take care of the housework so that I can go back with you. Wang Shang said respectfully, I am happiest underground. There is a fierce woman in my family, and the house is small and simple. I'm afraid you can't bear the grievance. Jinse smiled and said, it doesn't matter. The two of them had a drink and then went to bed. A few days later, Jinse said to Wang Shang, the party in the underworld should not last too long. You go back first and take care of the housework. I will go by myself later. So he gave Wang Shang a horse to ride on. After opening the door and going out, the earth wall closed again. Wang Shang rode back to the village. The people in the village were shocked when they saw him. When I came to the door of my house, I saw a tall and big house with a brand new look. It turned out that after Wang Shang injured Lan and ran away from home, Lan called her to brothers and wanted to wait for Wang Shang to come back and beat her up to take revenge. They didn't go home until dawn, so the two brothers left. Someone found Wang Shang's shoes in the ditch and suspected that he was dead. There has been no news for more than a year. There was a man named Jia from central Shaanxi who asked a matchmaker to find out the Lan family and married her at Wang Shang's home. Many more houses were built in the past 6 months. Later, Jia went out to do business and bought a little wife. From then on, Lan often made noise at home, and Jia often did not come home for several months. Wang Shang asked about the truth and was furious. He tied his horse and ran straight in. Seeing the old woman, she was so shocked that she fell on the ground and started talking. Wang Shang scolded her and asked her to lead him to find Lan, but Lan had already run away. Soon she was found behind the house, having hanged herself. Wang Shang asked someone to take the body back to her parents' home. He called the concubine and saw that she was a teenager and quite pretty, so he took her in that night. Jia asked the people in the village to send a message and beg for the return of his young wife, but the concubine wailed and refused to go. Wang Shang then wrote a complaint to sue Jia for occupying the family property and taking away his wife. Jia didn't dare to ask for it anymore, so he quickly closed the shop and left. Wang Shang suspected that Jinse had broken the promise. One night while drinking with his concubine, he heard the sound of carriages and horses outside, and then someone knocked on the door. It turned out to be Jinse. Jinse only kept Chunyan and sent everyone else back. Entering the room, I paid my respects to my concubine. Jinse looked at her carefully and said, this man has the appearance of giving birth to a man. He can suffer on my behalf. Then he gave her gorgeous clothes and pearls and jewelry. After paying homage, I accepted them and stood aside to serve her. Jinse sat her down and talked and laughed. After a long time, Jinse said, I'm drunk and want to sleep. The concubine resigned, and Wang Shang took off his shoes and went to bed. As soon as the concubine went out and entered her bedroom, she was shocked to see Wang Shang lying on the bed. She quickly returned to the original room to take a peek, but the lights in the room were out. From then on, Wang Shang didn't sleep with his concubine for a night. One night, I got up and secretly went to Jinse's bedroom to see Jinse and Wang Shang talking and laughing. She was very shocked and hurriedly ran back to tell Wang Shang, but there was no one in the bed. After dawn, I secretly told Wang Shang these strange things. Wang Shang himself didn't know about it. He only felt that sometimes he slept in Jinse's place, and sometimes he slept in his concubine's place. Wang Shang asked his concubine not to publicize this matter. After a long time, the maid also began to have an affair with Wang Shang, and Jinse seemed not to know. Later, the maid suddenly had difficulty in giving birth, and she only called her Ms. As soon as Jinse entered, the fetus came out immediately, and it was still a boy. After delivering the baby, Jinse handed the child to the maid's arms and said with a smile, I can't have another slave. Once you have too many karma, it will be difficult to let go of love. From then on, the maid did not give birth again. I gave birth to 5 boys and 2 girls. Jinse lived in Wang Shang's house for 30 years. During this period, he often returned to his hometown, coming and going in the dark. One day, he left with his maid and never came back. After Jinse left, when Wang Shang was 80 years old, he suddenly took an old servant out at night and never returned.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.